Look, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a long, exhausting week? Maybe work was brutal, your patience was gone, and you thought to yourself, I deserve this. Not because you planned to buy it, not because you needed it, but because you were tired, stressed, burnt out. So you ordered the nicer meal, bought the upgrade, or clicked buy on something that made the day feel better for about 5 minutes. If that sounds familiar, you're not bad with money. You're human. And that thought, I deserve this, might be the most expensive sentence in your life. My name is Dady, and I spend way too much time thinking about why smart, hardworking people make financial decisions that quietly work against them. If you're someone who works hard, feels mentally exhausted more often than you'd like, and finds yourself spending money as a form of relief, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because once you understand what's really happening behind I deserve this purchases, it becomes much easier to control them without feeling deprived. Here's the thing. Most people think these purchases are about money. They're not. They're about emotion. When you say, I deserve this, what you're really saying is, I've been uncomfortable for too long and I want relief. And your brain is wired to look for the fastest possible relief available. Psychologists call this emotional compensation. When you experience stress, frustration, or burnout, your brain looks for a quick reward to balance it out. And spending money is one of the fastest rewards available. According to research published in the Journal of Consumer Research, people are significantly more likely to spend impulsively after experiencing mental stress or ego depletion. In other words, the more drained you feel, the weaker your resistance becomes. This is why I deserve this purchases usually happen at the worst possible time, after a long workday, after an argument, after a stressful week. When your mental energy is low and your emotional defenses are gone, you're not making a rational decision, you're making a soothing one. Here's what most people don't realize. Your brain doesn't evaluate these purchases in terms of long-term impact. It evaluates them in terms of emotional payoff. That $70 dinner doesn't feel like a financial decision. It feels like relief. That upgraded phone doesn't feel like overspending. It feels like progress. And because the emotional reward is immediate, the financial cost feels distant and abstract. This is where it gets really interesting. The more responsible you are most of the time, the more dangerous I deserve this becomes. When you work hard, show up every day, and delay gratification constantly, your brain keeps track of that effort, and eventually it starts looking for a release. That release often shows up as permission to spend. According to behavioral economists, this is called moral licensing. When you do something good, your brain gives you subconscious permission to do something bad later. You worked hard all week, so you've earned a reward. You saved money last month, so this purchase doesn't count. The problem is your bank account doesn't care about moral licensing. Let's talk numbers for a second. A single $80 I deserve this purchase doesn't seem like a big deal. But if that happens once a week, that's over $4,000 a year. If it happens twice a week, you're looking at more than $8,000. And that's not counting bigger versions like upgrading cars, apartments, or lifestyle choices justified by the same logic. What makes this worse is that these purchases rarely show up as a clear category in your budget. They're scattered: a nicer coffee here, an extra delivery order there, a random upgrade you didn't plan for. Individually, they're invisible. Collectively, they're heavy. Now you might be thinking, okay, so am I just not supposed to enjoy my money? Am I supposed to feel guilty every time I buy something nice? No, that's not the point. The problem isn't rewarding yourself. The problem is using spending as your primary coping mechanism for stress. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If spending is the main way you deal with exhaustion, frustration, or unhappiness, it will always expand to match your income. More money just gives you more expensive ways to cope. This is why people often say things like, I make more money now, but I still feel broke. The income went up, but the emotional spending went up with it. And because these purchases feel justified, they're rarely questioned. Another psychological trick at play here is what researchers call mental accounting. You separate money into different emotional buckets. Money spent on necessities feels different from money spent on rewards. So when you say, "I deserve this," you mentally remove that purchase from scrutiny. It's not spending, it's self-care. And that reframing is powerful. The real danger is that "I deserve this" purchases don't create lasting happiness. They create short-term relief followed by a return to baseline, sometimes even regret. That's why the urge comes back again and again. You're not fixing the problem, you're numbing it. So how do you break this cycle without feeling like your life is all work and no joy? The answer isn't to eliminate rewards, it's to plan them intentionally instead of emotionally. One of the most effective strategies is to create a guilt-free reward category in your budget, a specific amount of money that you are allowed to spend on enjoyment, no questions asked. When that money is gone, you wait. This keeps rewards from turning into impulse coping. Another powerful shift is separating stress relief from spending. Ask yourself, if money wasn't an option right now, how would I decompress? Walking, exercising, talking to someone, taking a break, sleeping better. When spending stops being your default relief valve, it loses a lot of its power. It also helps to delay the purchase, not forever, just 24 hours. Most "I deserve this" urges are emotional spikes. If the desire is still there the next day, it's probably something you actually value. If it disappears, it was never about the item. Here's the key insight. You don't deserve everything you want in the moment. You deserve a life that feels stable, calm, and free from constant money stress. And those two things are often in conflict. The goal isn't to never say, "I deserve this." The goal is to stop using it as an automatic override for your long-term goals. When you slow down that moment and ask what you're really trying to fix, you start making very different choices. If this video made you recognize a few of your own habits, that's a good thing. Awareness is where control begins. Hit the like button if this helped you think differently about spending. Subscribe if you want honest conversations about money that actually match real life. And remember, the most expensive purchases are rarely the big ones. They're the small, justified ones you never question. I'll see you in the next one.